This Week in Startups is brought to you by Salesforce Essentials. Jumpstart sales and support by leveraging the world's #1 CRM at a startup price point at just $25 a month per user. Go to salesforce.com/twist for an additional 50% off and a free onboarding call. Walker Corporate Law, specializing in the representation of entrepreneurs. Visit walkercorporatelaw.com. And NetSuite by Oracle, the business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform. Right now, NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide called 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your Profits at netsuite.com/twist. Upcoming launch events. Apply for our next Founder University September 9th and 10th in San Francisco at founder.university. And get your free Founder Pass for Launch Scale in San Francisco October 7th and 8th at launchscale.net/tickets.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of This Week in Startups. I'm your host, Jason Calacanis. I'm 48 years old. I live here in Silicon Valley. I invest in 80 or 90 companies a year. Sometimes I put in 25K, sometimes 100, sometimes $1 million, sometimes $2 million. And the majority of those companies go down in a burning heap of fire and I lose all my money. But once every 25 or 35, one of them becomes a unicorn, $1 billion company. Oh, yumskis. So my job is not to invest in all the unicorns. It's to invest in one every 50 or 100, and I'm in good shape. And part of that process is to have a podcast. And on this podcast, I talk to my investor friends and I meet new friends, new entrepreneurs. And a lot of people want to know, how do you get on This Week in Startups? And we get a lot of pitches all day long, PR people emailing us. And I just write them back. Thank you. That's so gracious. But we don't take suggestions and recommendations for the show. Tell Mr. Bezos I'm a huge fan. And we generally look for, I'm joking, if Jeff Bezos is listening, for the love of God, come on the pod. Although it's kind of tough because the people, when they become successful, they talk less. So I like to get them early when they're a little bit more honest and candid. And the way you do get on this podcast is that somebody who's on the show mentions maybe one of their investments, or they mention something they're very excited about. And my guest today has a really good idea. And she's executing at an extremely high level because I love design. And man, your website's designed really well. And my friend Dave Morin was recently on the Angel Podcast, which you can visit at angelpodcast.com. Dave Morin worked for the Zuck and built the newsfeed, and then went on to do Path.com, which is the best social network ever made. Rest in peace. And now he's an investor at a firm called Slow Ventures. Anyway, he was raving about Hipcamp. You can go check out Hipcamp right now. It's hipcamp.com. And the founder's name is Alyssa Ravasio.
Correct.
Alyssa Ravasio. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me, Jason.
Yeah. Tell me and tell the audience, what is Hipcamp and how'd you come up with the idea?
So Hipcamp unlocks access to private land for camping, glamping, RVs, and general outdoor recreation. And I came up with the idea as a very frustrated camper myself. So in particular, I was planning a trip fairly last minute. I'm not a big planner. And as many people who do camp, especially in the United States, know, if you're not planning 6 months in advance, you often end up with nowhere to go.
And most people do not know this, but if you try to get into Yosemite and you want to camp in the valley this summer, when would I have to have booked for the July-August season?
6 months in advance to the day at, I believe, 8 a.m. on the dot. By 8:02, you're probably host.
So I've got to go to the website essentially in December or January at 8 a.m. every day for that day that unlocks to get one of the coveted spots at Yosemite.
Correct. And even if you're there refreshing the page on the minute, you might miss it. And so that's not my style. I like living a bit more in the flow and
why not?
Figuring things out as I go.
Spontaneity.
Totally.
It's a lost art.
It's important. And so for me, I was looking to plan a trip on New Year's, just a couple days before New Year's, and I was getting totally host. Everything was booked. I was really frustrated because the state parks, the national parks, the public parks, all different websites. And so I finally chose somewhere that didn't take bookings and tried my luck, rolled the dice. Actually got lucky and ended up getting a spot. It was the last one at the campground, showed up, and even though I'd read for hours about this campground. I hadn't learned that it had an incredible surf break. And so I walked into this campground and I didn't have a surfboard. And I'd actually taken it out of my car before driving down to make room for my tall friend Sean, who's lovely. But in this case had really caused me some pain. And so driving back that next day, just realized camping's broken. The internet could fix it. And this is a really worthwhile problem.
Yeah.
And set out to do that.
What I really like about what you're doing, and I had heard the pitch for a camping Airbnb over and over again. Nobody seems to have gotten it done. There's a lot of little efforts out there, I think, is that you're taking people who own private land and unlocking it. So let's unpack that for a second. The inventory, you're sourcing inventory. So if I owned a ranch up in Petaluma somewhere, north of the city or east of the city, and I had 1,000 acres, and I said, you know what, I just take these 10 acres by the river. It's lovely. I'll put a fire pit there, and I'll put a water spigot and an electrical hookup maybe or not. And you would then source that and allow people to use that and take a piece of the VIG like Airbnb does, get a little bit of the action, 10%, 20% of it. What do you take?
Yeah, so we take 10% from whatever the landowner sets up as their price. And so what we always say to these landowners as we're reaching out is, look, we only make money when you make money. And I think that's a really compelling offer. And part of getting to private land, I should say, and I know Dave mentioned this on the show, we started focused on public land. And it was only through kind of really staying focused on this problem, which was that camping's hard, that we arrived at a very different solution than I started out with, which was private land, because we kept hearing everything's booked, your website's cool, the UI is beautiful, but everything's booked. And so private land really emerged as the only way to solve the problem. We had to create more campsites.
You needed more supply.
Way more supply.
The issue wasn't just a lack of information, and let's face it, government-built websites may not be the most sophisticated. They probably look like Craigslist or eBay. How do you convert somebody who has land, which means they're probably affluent, may or may not need the money? How do you convert them to wanting to take the risk of having a bunch of kids at a campfire on their land who might get hurt, who might get killed, whatever, anything can happen. You might get sued. That's got to be the biggest hurdle, is it not?
Definitely.
And how do you overcome it?
So there's a couple really important ways we do that. The first is by de-risking the situation immensely. So we have a really great liability insurance program as well as a separate property protection program. So our hosts are insured for up to $2 million in any liability incident, and then in addition for any property damage. So until we had that program set up, it was almost impossible to sign people up because the risk was just too great. And then on the other side, talking about the potential upside, we have landowners that make, into the six figures every year now.
Oh, yum.
And so, And a lot of times, I would say there's a couple of main reasons people sign up. Sometimes the cash is really important. A lot of landowners actually are more, land rich, cash poor. Maybe they inherited the land, they've had it for a long time. Property taxes might be going up. Rural wages certainly are not. Here's a cool way to bridge the gap.
Yes. Very cool. When you went to your first insurance meeting and explained the idea, how many insurers did you have to go to get this coverage? And what was their reaction? I'm curious as an entrepreneur, because that seems like your biggest hurdle. How hard was it to overcome? Take me into that meeting.
So we were really fortunate. I had a great advisor, Sarah Swenson, who actually had worked at a company called Boatbound. And so knew a really great insurance broker and was able to kind of shepherd us to the right people pretty easily.
Let me guess. Boatbound lets you rent a boat?
Correct.
That's somebody else's.
Correct.
Which is probably 1,000 times more risky.
Exactly.
In terms of death and destruction of property.
Exactly. So their expectations were like, for what we were offering, I think it was a much easier sell than letting people who may or may not be trained in driving a boat to drive a boat.
And tell me about the first couple of meetings, or whichever one's the most notable and interesting, that you had with a landowner. How did you source a landowner? Did you knock on somebody's door and hope they didn't take their shotgun down above the fireplace? How did you get the first couple of people online? Tell me.
I'll give credit to my father here.
Okay.
He's a big fly fisherman. He has a big shotgun. No shotguns. He's a great fly fisherman, though, and he grew up teaching me as I grew up how to fly fish. And so when I told him about this idea and our struggles finding that first landowner, because it was a real problem for us. He knew of a program called Private Waters where landowners opened up their land for fly fishermen. And so we called a fly shop that I grew up going to, and they had a single landowner in mind that we reached out to. It's called Clear Creek Ranch. It's a beautiful property. We were only successful in getting them to sign up, though, once we arranged a partnership with Mountain Hardware to essentially pre-buy all their camping for the summer. So I was able to hand this landowner a check for $15,000 and say, please sign up for my startup. I promise it'll be awesome, and I'll pay you up front. And that was how we got our first landowner on board.
Wow. What does the landowner need to do? We know what an Airbnb host needs to do. They need to get you the code to unlock it. They need to have cable TV. They need to have internet. They need to have some, really cheap pots and pans in the off chance you want to cook some spaghetti, and they need to clean the place. Mm-hmm. What does the landowner need to do? Nothing? Something? What?
Depends on the type of Hipcamp experience they're offering. So our mission is to get more people outside. And so in general, if that's really the type of experience you're interested in offering, it might be a fit for the platform. However, if you're offering tent camping, there's certain requirements, for example, having a bathroom. Whereas if you only want to be open for RV camping, that's not necessary because the RVs have a toilet on board.
So you can just say park here.
Park here. Gate code is an important thing. I would say directions are hard because in rural areas, you tend to lose service. We just launched an app with offline direction mode. So that's really important and helpful. Came from lots of good user feedback. And then we also have a segment of supply that we call glamping or lodging. So these could be anything from a tree house to a yurt. And in those cases, it really ranges from total bare bones rustic where you're bringing your own sleeping bag all the way up to beautiful linens and full service kitchen and shower. So in those cases, what's really important is for the landowner to set expectations properly. Okay. And we also send photographers out to help them do that.
All right. When we get back from this quick message, I'm going to ask you the really hard question.
Looking forward.
How did you raise money in the face of Airbnb, the 800,000 pound gorilla in the space, having, let's say, the highest end of your inventory already there? They have glamping, they have tree houses. And how did you overcome the objection from the world's best investors? I see Benchmark's in there, and I know Dave Morin's in there. How did you overcome the objection? Well, what if Airbnb can do this? Or can Airbnb just do this and put you out of business at any time? When we get back on This Week in Startups. Scaling sales is hard. I deal with this over and over and over again with my companies and the companies I invest in. You already know Salesforce is the world's #1 customer relationship management platform, aka CRM. You've heard it. Well, now with Salesforce Essentials, you get an easy out-of-the-box tool and support, all at a startup price point. You get instant setup. Boom. It's online, up and running, right then and there. And you don't need code. You can easily scale your sales team by customizing with clicks, not writing code. And you'll get full cycle customer support built right in. This is so you can automatically connect multiple support channels. You know those channels: chat, email, phone, all of these things. You'll be able to automate all that busy work and repetitive tasks, allowing your sales and support teams to be more efficient. And customers, of course, can help themselves with the self-service support site that Salesforce will set up for you. Everything you need is on one screen, so you can track all these emails, track all these calls, and the meetings right there in your inbox. So go and get access to the world's #1 CRM at a cost fit for a startup. Go to salesforce.com/twist and get, believe it or not, a 50% discount. That's right. Get a 50% discount with your annual contract and a free onboarding training session. They're going to train you and make sure you know how to use the product so you're not wasting any time or wasting any money, which we know is essential for startups. Salesforce wants you to be efficient, and they don't want you to waste your startup dollars. They want to grow with you. Salesforce.com/twist. Salesforce.com/twist. I'm so proud of that, that you will get a 50% discount with an annual contract. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. Our guest is Alyssa Ravasio. She is the CEO and co-founder of Hipcamp. You can go check it out. She's been doing it since 2013. Long road, but they've raised over $40 million. O'Reilly Alpha Tech Ventures, Jay Adelson, Slow Ventures, Mark Bell, Benchmark August, and it looks like Our friends at Andreessen Horowitz just dropped 25 million. That's nice.
Correct.
They jump the fence every time. My God, those guys just know how to spend money.
They do.
Got to be a little careful, though, because the reputation of Andreessen Horowitz now is they give too much money to founders and then push them to grow unnaturally fast. Did you hear that? And what are your thoughts on VC pressure? Do you feel pressure when they give you that much money for a camping marketplace to go faster and grow faster, or are they reasonable? What's the truth about Andreessen Horowitz?
Great question. So from all the fundraisers I've done, I've always prioritized around who I get to work with.
The partner.
Yes. And so I'm
Not just the firm.
Not just the firm. No, it's all about the person for me. And so in this case, we were very fortunate to get to work with Andrew Chen,
Who worked at Uber.
Among other things.
Or Andrew's a little weird, though. But anyway, keep going.
He's great. So we were really excited because I got to know him over the course of a year. He actually came to our first ever host summit where he had 100 hosts come and glamp out at this beautiful ranch and learn how to use the platform better. Nice. And so I'd gotten to know him and I'd gotten to know how he thinks and works. And so I was really excited to figure that out with him. Something I've always done that I think has served us well is I'm not the type of founder that takes a term sheet and then runs around the valley and bids it up. I optimize for the person. I tell them what I want. I have a number in mind. And if they can meet it, we're done. And I'm not going to go, try to bid them up.
Got it. So you know what you want. You tell them what you want. And they're in or they're out.
Pretty much.
That's it. That's
pretty
pretty
much.
Baller. You're like, I need 25 million for 20%. Yes, no. If not, I go back to work.
Yep.
3, 2, go. Well, I think it's important because sometimes when you raise that amount of money, the VCs can pressure you. I know they had Quirky and Zenefits and a couple other companies go off the rail because they were pushing too hard. And I think they've corrected. My understanding is Andreessen Horowitz had an internal discussion about pushing to go too fast. Because if you raise at high valuations for them to make money, if they pay double the valuation than anybody else is willing to pay, which is their reputation, they just pay a high price. Well, that means in order for them to get their money back, they have to push you to just fill in that area, and then they got to go from there.
And for the founder to raise the next round, the bar has been set, unreasonably high.
Yeah.
And so if they don't grow unreasonably fast, who's going to come next and want to pay that same price?
It is a balance, right? Because you want to get a good deal, you want to not dilute, but you don't want to set the bar ridiculously high.
Totally. I think another important thing people don't talk about enough is founder control of the company.
Got it.
So having a founder in control of the board, I think, can really negate a lot of the kind of unnecessary pressure that VCs can put on early stage companies. Of course, once you get to a later stage and you're going public, you don't always get to hold on to that. But that's something that's always been really important to me. And I think serves a very good counterbalance to having these, incredible, we get to work with Benchmark and Andreessen, these are incredible VCs with incredibly high expectations of us. And I love that. But I balance it with founder control.
So you have like a 5-seat board or something like that. 1 for the A, 1 for the B.
Correct.
And 3 for you.
Correct.
Perfect. 1 independent, but you pick them?
Correct.
Got it. Yeah, that's the magic. You pick the independent. The board has to approve it, so you get a little stalemate there.
Yep.
You have to be reasonable. You can't put your cousin on or your mom or your dad or whatever. You have to put on somebody who everybody can agree on.
Exactly.
Okay. The question is always going to be, and it's a stupid question, so I'm not asking it. I know the answer. But I want to educate our audience, which is entrepreneurs, as to how you dealt with that question, which must have come up about Airbnb. And how do you think about the competition from Airbnb? Unlimited resources, massive customer base, same business model.
I think it really comes down to the community that you're building and the values and intent of that community. So with Hipcamp, we're building a community of landowners who want to host people who want to get outside. And on the demand side, we're building a community of people who want to get outside. Those are going to be really hard things for Airbnb to compete with. Yeah. And the network effects we're building from the supply and demand side really reinforce. So we've actually had, as an example, some hosts who join Hipcamp, enjoy making this income, try Airbnb, and then come back. Because the type of person that really enjoys an Airbnb, which, by the way, great company, love it, use it all the time, but it's a really great alternative to a hotel. Right. And so they come in with that level of expectation, which is not what people on Hipcamp are prioritizing. Our amenities that matter, hot springs, waterfalls, the ocean. forests.
Right.
That's what we're building around and building a product and community around.
That makes sense. And if you do that, brand, I don't understand why people don't just say this. Brand.
Totally.
It's just brand. Like Airbnb's brand, you're 100% correct, is the more affordable solution to a hotel.
Mm-hmm.
It's $100 or it's $50 to $100 per person as opposed to $200 or $300 per person.
Right.
It's just a no-brainer. But that's completely different than optimizing for, does this river have bass?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a surf break? And what's the hiking like? It's completely different.
Yep.
Hey, you made a gorgeous video. I'm going to say let's play it.
Sure.
And for those of you listening, I want you to just use your imagination because it's a gorgeous video.
And it's all sound-based.
And it's all sound. So it's not a commercial. It's just an experience of people running through. But it's actually really clever. So you hear people crunching, laying out their tent, setting up the tent, putting the spikes in. I'm going to do what is that called? AMSR? ASMR? What is that? There's like this new thing where you meditate and the person talks into the microphone. Imagine you're drinking a cold beer and making coffee, frisbee in the desert, killing mosquitoes, playing cards, and cutting wood and lighting a match off of your zipper. Maybe don't do that. And there you are, cooking hot dogs and steak on a fire, popcorn. And you suddenly learned to play the guitar, and you now have hipster friends, thanks to Hipcamp.
Okay.
I'm Jason Calacanis, and I'm making you breakfast. There's a cute kid who's upset. 10 zippers. People living out of a van. And the morning light. Find yourself outside. From Hipcamp.
Well done.
Okay. Let's see the site. You got a site. You got a website. You built it up over the last couple of years. Gorgeous. You took your own photos.
Yeah.
That's key, right? Isn't it?
It really is. Because again, back to your point on brand, like brand is really how people feel when they hear and see your name. And photography is just such a powerful way to build that impression on people.
All right. Let's say I want to go to, let me pick. How about Wyoming?
Let's go to Wyoming.
I was just there. First time. Incredible.
Oh, cool.
One of the most beautiful. Oh, my God. Look at that. Look at that. State parks, national park system, national forest. You got the map on the right. Big, quiet tent camping. $40 a night.
That looks pretty good.
Small cowboy.
Yeah,
wall tent,
$75 for a glamp site. Let's look at
this
that.
glamping here. Yum, yum. Okay. Gorgeous.
Yep.
Tent. Very old school. Incredible land.
Cowboy breakfast included in your stay.
Wait a second. It's $75. That's $25 right there.
Amazing. And you don't have to leave the ranch. It's an organic farmstead. I mean, this is one of the things that's so powerful about what we're building is these landowners are really living with the land in a way that isn't easy to learn about on other platforms.
So you get that little bit of a guide, which was part of the original concept of Airbnb, but I think maybe people just want their room and to move on. But the campsite is part of a 450-acre ranch. And you're right an hour from 2 Yellowstone Park entrances.
Yep.
And you get pets are allowed. That's nice.
That's actually a fun
toilet's
fact.
available.
That is our most popular feature.
Of course
outside
it is.
dates. Everybody wants to bring their dog. By the way, or cat, or ducks.
Yeah.
You would be amazed the kind of pets people have.
Hold on a second. Go back up here. I want to see if there's Wi-Fi. That's the question I'm curious about. There it is. Wi-Fi is available. Wi-Fi is kind of required, isn't it?
You know, it's a controversial topic in the outdoors world. A few years ago, it was the trend. All the campgrounds were talking about installing Wi-Fi. And interestingly, in our American Camper report that came out this year, it's our big industry report, the interest in Wi-Fi in teenagers has actually been decreasing.
Really?
Which I view as a very positive sign for the evolution of humanity because,
thank the Lord.
We are just so overwhelmed with stress and signals and alerts and notifications. Taking a few days to let your brain reset has proven scientific benefits to make you smarter, more resilient to stress, more creative. Why would you ruin that? But if you're on the road and you're working, Wi-Fi is great.
Yeah. I think it's it's reasonable that people want it because some people are going on like they're driving across the country. They can't be out of contact constantly, but it is nice to be able to turn it off. And I think society, people are going to start to figure out like, you know what, I'm just going to put, when I was in Wyoming, at times I just put my phone in the drawer and left and went out with the girls. But $75 for up to 6 people, not $75 a person.
Correct.
So we're talking about $10 a night per person. What's the average cost across the site? What's the median? Is it $10 a person? $20 a person?
Yeah, actually around 10 or 15 a person. And we do lots of group bookings. So something that also is really unique about the platform and something that I think is harder to find in traditional campgrounds is we've got sites that can host 40, 50, 100 people.
Oh, wow.
So we do lots of like preschool bookings, big birthday parties, anniversaries, company offsites.
I was thinking about the company offsite thing as an interesting concept.
Definitely.
That's definitely an interesting idea.
Should we find some more?
Yeah. Let's see. What is another interesting place? There's some yurts.
Ooh,
Get the yurts.
Yurts are good.
Yurts are nice. Teepees.
Tent sites. I think that one of the most interesting things is that so many of these landowners are going to be just experts in their local area and able to tell you about the secret swimming holes, the best fishing spots.
What about Hawaii? That's a place people
Let's
like.
Let's go to Hawaii.
Let's go to Kauai. Or you just do all of Hawaii as one? Okay.
We'll zoom in, though.
Yeah, we'll zoom in there. Because Kauai, a lot of people do like to go to the Garden Island and try to find places. There's Maui. That's an obvious one, I'm sure. You can go to Hana,
Maui's
actually.
Good. Yeah, the Big Island is also really, really
I was just on the Big Island on the East Coast. There's some really, look, it's all clutter on that East Coast of the island.
Hammock glamping, I'll take it. Tent camping with a view. I mean, I think, again, so many of these places are just... It's just super unique. Here's a goddess cabin, for one. Rainforest cabin. I mean, again, these hosts are, really from a business standpoint, what we're building is a platform that supports these brilliant, creative micro entrepreneurs in building their business. And they know their market. They know their land.
What's interesting about this one is
creative.
They'll give you a tent, too. So they actually have the tent set up there. Is that right? Or does that just happen to be a picture of somebody with a tent? You bring your tent?
A lot of times they have their tent. It is marked. If there's a tent provided, it'll say accommodation provided. But a lot of times you're bringing a tent. Sometimes it's set up. In Hawaii in particular, being able to rent camping gear is really helpful because not everybody wants to fly with it.
Yeah. You know what I'm big into? I'm big into the lean-tos.
Oh,
I'm a lean-to guy.
Cool.
Always have been. Let me see a lean-to here. You got a lean-to? I don't think people have ever stayed in a lean-to.
I don't know if we have a lean-to search.
Anywhere. Nowhere. You can't, if you keyword search lean-to, no lean-tos, anywhere. You know what a lean-to is, right?
I think so. Tell me more.
A lean-to is a kind of like a cabin, but there's no front.
Right.
So you have a slanted roof in case there's, snow or whatever. And a lean-to has a back wall and 2 side walls. And usually the roof is pitched straight down. So if you go from the back, you can walk on the roof almost. So it kind of slopes down and you go into it. And as you walk in, it goes down. So lean-to. Oh, there you go. Okay, here we go. Best lean-to image. There you go. So when I would go camping, that's a lean-to right there. So lean-tos, what's nice about them is, if it rains, you're good.
Right.
But you're kind of out in nature and a bear can still eat you.
Right.
Perfect. It's a perfect combination. Bear gets you cornered in there, you're done.
I think we have a lot of these on the East Coast.
It's an East Coast thing because you got snow. We would do this in Boy Scouts. Snow, rain, sleet, it didn't matter.
Wow.
We would stay in a lean-to.
Wow.
It would be snowing. It'd be cold. All right. When we get back from this final and quick break, I want to know how your job has changed as an entrepreneur from bootstrapping and kind of building this with a small amount of seed capital to now how you've had to shift gears when you have this amount of money and this much at stake, and I'm assuming 50 employees now?
Just about.
When we get back, how has life changed for you with 50 employees headed to 500 on This Week in Startups? Thanks again to the Walker Corporate Law Group, a boutique law firm specializing in startups for supporting This Week in Startups for a decade. Thank you, Scott. From me, Jason Calacanis, to you, Scott Walker. Thank you not only for supporting the program, but for supporting all the startups I've sent to you over the years. You know the Walker Corporate Law encourages fixed fees. They believe billable hours are inefficient, and they will give you a fixed fee so that when you get that bill at the end of the month, boom, you know what you're going to pay. You're not going to have that sticker shock when you open the PDF. Additional services, mergers and acquisitions, licensing arrangements, terms of service, privacy policies, all that stuff that you need to do to make sure your startup is protected and done right. And their lawyers have decades of experience, 10, 20 years or more. There are no junior associates getting on-the-job training with your startup. So if you want to talk to the founder himself, Scott Ed Walker, go directly to walkercorporatelaw.com or email Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com. Scott at walkercorporatelaw.com or call 415-979-9998. 415-979-9998. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode. All right, welcome back to This Week in Startups. My guest is Alyssa Ravasio. You can follow her on the Twitter, ALYRAZ, and her company's Hipcamp. Dave Morin, my pal, the investor, put a little bit of money in. And Andreessen just backed up the Brinks truck, as they are apt to do. And that has put you in a position of getting close to 50 employees, which means of the last 10, you may or may not know their spouses and kids' names or their significant others. And there are probably people at your company that you yourself didn't hire. Is that right?
Definitely.
How have you had to? Is your first startup? Second?
This is my first startup I founded.
Okay, great. So you've been at startups, but this is the one. This is your startup. How have you had to shift gears now going into scale?
It's a great
You have
question.
product market fit. Now you scale.
Yeah. It's a question that I have to think about all the time. When I first started Hipcamp, I actually learned how to program and built the website myself.
Okay.
And did everything, right?
Because you couldn't find a developer. There's none left.
Actually, all the developers I tried to work with kept trying to date me, and that got really tiring.
Oh, my Lord.
So I decided to just learn how to code. I figured that would be easier.
I have 3 daughters, and like every
Just
time I
teach them how
hear
to code.
these stories, I mean, punch them in the face. I mean, it's just, that is infuriating.
Yeah, it was.
Infuriating.
So I'm used to doing literally everything.
You could literally put a wedding ring on as like, in order to get a developer, I have to pretend I'm married.
Right.
Like I knew women in New York. It sounds crazy, but some of them wore like a wedding band or whatever, and like just
I get it.
pretended they were married just
I
to
can
like
understand that.
not get harassed on the street. But that's still going on.
Yeah. And I think it's not always as poorly intended as it comes off.
Right.
But it does, for me, led to a lot of motivation to become more self-sufficient. So for the beginning of this company, I was like doing the support, doing the coding, doing the marketing, doing the content. So it's been a long process of learning to really give up things that I feel really strongly about, and I have really strong opinions about everything should go. And I've learned instead of trying to be the solution, I need to now build the solution. And that almost always means finding someone smarter, more experienced, and more talented than I am to take over a specific defined role. And then my job becomes making sure I've got the right people in the right places. They have the resources they need.
Yeah.
And that everyone knows what we're working on and that we have a strategy that makes sense.
See, what's so great about your system, which was a system I used when I got into the magazine business in the 90s, is nobody can snow you because you know how to write code. You know how to design. You know how customer support works. Now, let's say you're 60 or 70% as good as them. That is dramatically different than you having zero experience in sales and having some sales executive tell you, no, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And they kind of like make the development world and the design and the customer sort of opaque to you. And then they use that over the founder or the CEO, to kind of protect them from the truth. And then you can't actually make progress.
Agreed.
So I tell everybody, get to 60%, 70% proficiency, which for a smart, motivated person, you can learn 60% of customer support in the first 30 days.
Agreed.
Each point after that might be a week or a month, right? So becoming 95% capable, to be 95th percentile in customer support might take you a year. But to get to the 60th or 70th percentile might take you a month.
Yep.
Developing, maybe 3 months. Sales, maybe 2 months. Like, just get some basic proficiency.
Yeah.
And you'll be so much better off. But the challenge then becomes, You are motivated because it's your baby, it's your vision, it's your company. So now you're hiring people who may have more experience than you. It's not their company.
Mm-hmm.
And you worked at other startups. How do you get them to feel like they truly have ownership? Or are you okay with them having 80% or 50% or whatever the percentage is, the motivation that you have? Because this is something I am still frustrated with in my life. I need advice on. How do you deal with that?
The best way to do it is to truly give them ownership.
Yeah.
So being, generous with equity packages and not, I think especially something I've seen go wrong with startups that do raise big rounds is they start paying a lot of money and competing on salary. We don't play that game. We look for people who are really excited to build a company and give them really great equity packages. So they really are genuinely owners, which is important. Also, we've got a really powerful mission to get more people outside, to really shift culture to one where people are more connected with nature, where people feel like they belong in the outdoors, where everybody has access to nature as a right. And so finding people who really connect with that and believe in that, I think goes a long way as well. And then, finally, I think really treating people like owners of their kingdoms.
Yeah.
Which means, sometimes they might make their own mistake. I might just kind of let things roll a little bit more, giving them kind of that ability to really govern their world as they see fit.
Yeah. Let the Mustangs run. Like, let them run.
Exactly.
Let them, if they
and that's
trip
what
and they
talented
fall.
people want. They don't want someone coming in and,
micromanaging
telling them everything. Exactly.
Yeah. The only time you have to do that is if things go off the rails.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of feel like that is when I see the great entrepreneurs. They find incredible people, like you're saying. They motivate the heck out of them. They give them all that space and freedom. And then if something goes wrong, they become micromanagers to the 100th degree.
Yeah.
You find yourself doing that sometimes?
Yeah. I call it riding shotgun.
Riding shotgun.
I'm right here.
I'm right here for you.
We're going to figure this one out together.
And that's a nice way to put it. It's like, the other way to put it is, my God, this is a disaster. And I'm going to come and clean up this mess. No, you're like, I'm riding shotgun. You could use a little support.
Well, but the thing about being the founder and CEO is so often when those situations happen, it's on you too, right? You put someone in a role they weren't ready for, or you set them up where they didn't have enough resources to execute on the plan. And so it often really is like, I'm riding shotgun with you because we're in this together and we got here together and we're going to get out of here together.
Or you hired the wrong person, or they're suddenly getting lazy and entitled.
That happens too.
And that's the other problem is sometimes you get that entitlement. Let me ask you a tough question. Think about it for a second. You got somebody who is a 10 out of 10 developer, product manager, sales executive, pick a role. 10 out of 10 on a skill level. 7 out of 10 or 6 out of 10 on their motivation for the mission. Now you got somebody who's a 6 out of 10 as a skilled developer, salesperson, product manager. 10 out of 10 on motivation. Which, if you could only pick one, do you go with and why? You can take me through your thinking if you want.
I'll talk it through. So
talk it through.
So much of it depends on why they would be a 6 out of 10 on either realm. So if the motivation is a 6 out of 10 just because they weren't raised in the outdoors and they don't get it, but I can see the sparks in their eyes as I start to talk about how not only are we getting people outside, we've created the most scalable model for protecting nature on the planet. If they spark on that, even if they're not there yet, I believe they'll get there. And then same on the skill side, if they are a 6 out of 10 because they're more junior in their career, but the raw talent. I am a sucker for raw talent and intelligence and in creativity. And
so you like to develop talent.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so if I see that, if you're a 6 out of 10 today, you can be a 10 out of 10. I think Hipcamp is a great place to have that career growth. And so probably would go more for that. If it's more 6 out of 10 because you've been doing the same thing for a long time and you're not particularly well suited for the field and there's not a huge upside, it's kind of like investing, right? What's the upside? That's how I would evaluate that question. Yeah.
And the reason I picked 6 is because 6 can very easily become 7 or 8. But cannot easily become 9 or 10. There's a little bit of a jump there. And so, but if you said 7 or 8, it's kind of easy. You're like, I can get 1 or 2 points.
Right.
Anybody can get 1 or 2 points, but getting those extra 3 or 4, that's when it gets hard. And it really, the way we like to say it internally is, missionaries versus mercenaries.
Yeah.
It's like Boba Fett, bounty hunters versus Jedi. Like, Jedis are what you want.
They're going to put in the work when things are hard.
Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes a bounty hunter can be quite effective.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to be careful, because the only person to ever talk back to Darth Vader in the Star Wars series, which as a millennial I think you might have missed, but was Boba Fett. And Darth Vader didn't force choke him to death or stick a lightsaber through him. Just shows you. Do you have any idea what I'm talking about right now? No. None at all.
I'm so embarrassed
There's
to admit.
There's literally 90% of the audience is like, what a great metaphor. Oh my God. So there was a film in 1977 called Star Wars, and the follow-up was called Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
And Darth Vader couldn't find Luke Skywalker, and the Emperor wanted him to find Luke Skywalker, and his people weren't good enough, so he got a group of bounty hunters. And he said, I need them alive. Anyway, it's a great film. You should check it out.
I think you have to be really careful with diluting culture, though, right? So I think, building on a team of missionaries, I think, is what's going to create an exceptional company. And so much of what I get to think about now is culture and philosophy. And so that's definitely something I'm, always weighing and always considering.
You want to put those bounty hunters or those mercenaries kind of like over here. They kind of exist outside the organization. Like you can use them as a consultant or for a period of time, but they will kill the culture.
And I think one bounty hunter surrounded by missionaries can become a missionary with bounty hunter skills.
It's interesting you mentioned that. There's a film called The Mission, which is in my top 3 favorite films. Liam Neeson, Jeremy Irons, and Robert De Niro filmed on location in South America on the falls, like the greatest falls in the world. Might that interest you?
Yes.
With a score by Ennio Morricone, the greatest Italian composer of all time.
I'll take it.
You will see this film, and we will talk for 3 hours about it.
Looking forward to it.
The Mission.
Looking forward to it.
Transcendent. Charles, have you seen The Mission, Sir Charles? No. Oh, my God. Master Nick? No. Oh, my God. An intern? No, definitely not. Comms? No. Oh, my God. You've been to the falls. I'm sitting in a room with 7 people here, and nobody's seen The Mission.
I'll see it and let you know. I actually studied film at UCLA for
Oh, you did?
a little while.
I lived around the corner. I lived in
cool.
Brentwood by the Brentwood School.
Nice.
And I used to go sneak into UCLA and pick up basketball with like
It's
people
a
half
great
my
camp-
age. It was
it's
a
a
great
great
campus.
campus.
Open campus. You just walk in and play pickup games. It was great.
Great film
Studied
school. Yeah, we have a beautiful theater where we got to see like the original Godfather on film.
Wow.
But then I created a major about the internet, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
What year was this?
This was 2011.
Oh, wow. Was Diego teaching there at the time? He teaches at was the Annenberg School there? What's the business school? There's a business school there. He teaches there.
Anderson.
Anderson, you're right.
I did take some classes in the business school. I didn't know. I didn't take one
Diego
from him.
Bernican. He's doing Cloud Kitchens and that's some other companies.
Oh,
He's a good friend of mine, yeah. All right. Well, listen. And we showed the site. We showed the video.
Mm-hmm.
You're hiring.
We're hiring.
So if people want a job, a
career,
a mission. If they want to be missionaries.
You want to come build a company.
It's very simple. All you have to do is get a bunch of photos of you camping, populate your Instagram, send an email, and say, I live for camping.
Perfect.
And you're in.
Perfect. As long as you have all the skills and are world class in your field.
World-class.
Absolutely.
Which isn't, are you based here?
Yeah, we're based in San Francisco. We're hiring for, across the board engineers, a couple of really cool senior roles as well for our leadership team around support,
President,
sales,
COO, VP of Ops.
engineering, not hiring for COO, but operations, yes, we're looking for someone
How do you think
huge.
about a VP of Ops, COO, president type? You don't have that position filled.
We are looking to fill that position to run our sales and our support, which is a huge role. Someone who can really build this company with us. So if you're that person, Alyssa at hipcamp.com.
Like you need a Sheryl Sandberg type. I mean, she's too far gone, but
we'll go
she's
get
out
her.
of order. But you need breaking news: Sheryl Sandberg is now the CEO. I have a feeling her next position is going to be Secretary of State.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Secretary of State, and then Vice President. I'm going to guess within the next 4 elections, Sheryl Sandberg will have a senior cabinet position reporting directly to the President of the United States?
Tweet it now.
I've tweeted it for the last 4 years. I've been like, let's go, Cheryl. We need you.
She's so amazing.
Oprah Sandberg.
I'd vote for that
Bloomberg Sandberg. Bloomberg. Just anything but Zuck. No Zuck, please. All right, listen. Continued success. Congratulations. Love what you're doing.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more on This Week in Startups. If you don't know your numbers, you just don't know your business. Growing businesses often have a hodgepodge of business systems, duct tape, everything just skunk work together. One system for accounting, one for sales, another one for your inventory. It's just a giant inefficient mess. You know that. And it keeps you from knowing your numbers, which then hurts your bottom line and just really affects everything up and down in terms of decision making. Well, introducing NetSuite by Oracle. It's the business management software that handles every aspect of your business in an easy-to-use cloud platform. NetSuite gives you the visibility and control you need to grow. You'll save time and money and unnecessary headaches by managing sales, finance, accounting, orders, and HR all instantly, right from your desktop or phone. That's why NetSuite is the world's #1 cloud business system. So here is your call to action. NetSuite is offering you valuable insights with a free guide called The 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your Profits. And who doesn't want to grow profits? We're not talking about revenue. We're talking about profits, what you take home. And you can get that right now for free. netsuite.com/twist. netsuite.com/twist to download your free guide, 7 Key Strategies to Grow Your Profits. At netsuite.com/twist. It gives you all the information you need in terms of exploiting new revenue streams and expanding to global markets. Really, a lot of great content. Let's get in there, everybody. netsuite.com/twist. Okay, let's get back to this amazing episode.
Office Hours with Jason Calcanis and Mike Savino in Sydney.
In Sydney. Welcome back. Joey Wong is our next guest. She has a marketplace. Big marketplaces are getting big for a reason. They scale very nicely, even though it's really hard. And she is working on midterm and monthly home rentals. Think 1 to 11 months. Have you built this product yet?
Yep, it's built. So we launched it about 3 months ago.
What's it called?
Rentality.
Rentality, like
Yep.
the mentality
Changing
of a renter.
changing rental mentality.
Changing the rental mentality.
Exactly.
I love the name.
Thank you.
Rentality.com.au.
And he very rarely likes names. So that's
I'm pretty particular about this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's important.
It's
It has
super
to have a
important.
meaning as well.
When I met the founder of com.com, I immediately wanted to invest because he told me he got the domain name for like less than 100,000. Okay, so what's your biggest challenge?
One of my biggest challenge would be early adopters. So we have quite a big segment in terms of like
Right into the microphone. Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We have quite a different segment in terms of like who we can target.
Sure.
And since our launch 3 months ago, we've been actually getting all the customers and transaction from all these segments. So they include like international students, international migrants, expats, who's coming here for comments, consultants, subcontractors, working holiday people. So like there's really like surgeons, specialist surgeons. So we've actually partnered with several institutions who are providing us customers with those.
Right.
So we're trying, because I know that a lot of people say that with a marketplace you have to have early adopters, but for us, like, like my question is sort of, should we really just go for one marketer? Like,
Yeah,
just go
so
for
early adopters typically means people who are willing to take a risk and pay more for new technology that could be frustrating and have a ramp up in terms of education. In other words, the people who bought drones 7-8 years ago
Yeah.
and were willing to change the blades, have them go flying, get lost in the sea, pay thousands of dollars for them, and generally have that really steep learning curve.
Yeah.
Now, at Christmas, you can buy a drone for $15 on Amazon, and it's for everybody, right?
Yeah.
So that's that early adopters versus the massive middle versus the laggards.
Yeah.
That's one concept, but that's for high tech.
Yeah.
Really cutting edge technology like VR headsets or the Apple Watch when it first comes out. That's what early adopters mean. Now, what you're talking about is slightly different. What you're talking is a beachhead,
Yeah.
a group of customers, a wedge strategy. Think about it like a wedge that you would split a log with.
Yeah.
It's a group of people that you can kind of really get in there into the market and crack the market open.
Yeah. Because it's a
That's
huge-
different than an early adopter.
Yeah.
So let's take it from that framework. So what does that mean? It means a group of people that you can find quickly.
Yeah.
Which group can you easily identify and find quickly? So as an example of that, let's think of an example of that. Somebody who owns a digital SLR camera, right? Like one of those fancy cameras.
Yeah.
Well, if you were going to have some new fancy camera that took pictures as good as that, it'd be good to target those people. And they're very easy to target. You can go onto any of the ad networks and find people who follow on Twitter Canon or follow some website about photography, and you got the photography, people who are passionate about photography, and that can be your wedge. If it comes to a demographic, like you're going after moms in America with 2 kids, or moms who are living in cities, or dads who are single dads, or 2 income, all of that is very psychographically available. And the other thing that's available is retargeting, which is if you made content, somebody landed on that content page through SEO or social media or whatever it is, like a landing page about, let's say you created a blog about student life in Sydney.
Yeah.
And it was in Taiwanese, Chinese, and Japanese, and you translated it. And then you put a tag on those pages to then retarget those people, and you did SEO in those countries. When they search for student housing or moving to Sydney or whatever the keyword search you do is, now you would have tagged them and you can retarget them, right?
Yeah.
So these are all secondary ways to sort of figure that out. Of that group that you listed, which one is the easiest for you to find, the easiest to get to, the easiest that already exists in a social network or a group somewhere?
So we've actually chosen quite a unique business strategy. Instead of just straight going to consumer, we decided to do B2B2C, which is a much, for us, is a much cheaper way to get customers.
Okay.
So what we've done is essentially we've go to like Australian medical associations, we've went to like travel management companies, we go to like international like language schools, TAFE institutions, and we partner with these institutions to get to their customers.
Great. So you know who the customer is. It's somebody who's an international student.
Yep.
And you know that there's an international school they're going to.
Yep.
And they have some binder there or some list of links or an email they send to them.
Yeah.
And so you've perfectly demonstrated that you understand the wedge strategy. To find the tip of the wedge, somebody who go in there, because what happens after they graduate?
Yeah.
They get jobs.
Yeah.
Or they go home and then they tell other people who are in the school, I use this resource. So that would be the perfect example of a really good wedge if they could become continuing customers because they might move here.
Yeah.
Or they might move to another city. So there might be a group of people who are workers like management consultants who are more nomadic and they go from Sydney to Qatar and then to Berlin. You might find somebody like that who is a nomadic group of consultants.
Yeah, we've actually had essentially we partner with one of the big consulting companies, and they will be continuous customers because they're going to keep sending people on comments to Melbourne, Sydney, etc.
So part of the game here is to identify one of these techniques and then layer a second and third one on it.
Right.
So once you've got that core group of people, you got the wedge, you got the tip into the trunk of that tree that you're going to split the log.
Right.
Okay, who's the group behind them? Who's the group behind them? And then how do you reach them? So then you get into member get a member, or making content for them, so giving them an incentive to spread that content or to put them in groups. So if you took that group of international students and you created a Facebook group for them. So I had a company we invested in called Anyplace that was doing short-term housing in hotels.
Yeah.
And they created a group that was called Renters and Roommates on Facebook. And it didn't have any of their branding.
We actually did that. We created every midterm temporary rental group in Facebook for every single state in Australia.
And it worked.
Yeah, it works. We're just getting
other people are posting to it.
Yeah.
And you post to it.
Yeah, but I'm an admin, so therefore I get premium advertisement strategy.
So you seem to know exactly what you're doing. Mike, anything to add or to learn from?
Yeah, how big are you now? Typically, going back to your strategy, if university is a strategy, then there's typically a stock of very specific housing that's in and around that university that people use to rent to students. So we know how to get to the students or maybe even the parents of the students. Yeah. How then are you going to get to those people who have been renting those same houses for years and years and maybe don't see a reason to go digital yet.
Yeah, actually, most of our property portfolio are in Melbourne and in popular areas like CBD, Dockland, where all the bankers are, and we have some. So like Melbourne students are funny, like international students are a funny thing. They're really like these Instagram famous apartments, and we have some of them which really clicks well with them. So like I guess
didn't know apartments could be Instagram famous.
Yeah,
That's
I didn't know that
incredible.
either until
wow.
then.
Do
They
these
have-
apartments have their own Instagram handles?
No, but like they have like really cool features like poker room that I'm sure you really love.
Okay, great.
In one of
Sounds
our
good.
apartment if you want to stay there.
Do you have cash? You have money?
Sorry?
You have money? You have cash? You're a startup. You don't have any.
No, I'm pretty. I'm a poor founder.
Bummer.
Yeah. So I guess like one of the challenges also differentiating between the business and also the consumer, because I guess for international students, the website, the product that they're looking for is quite different to business customers.
Yeah.
And I think that's also one of the challenges is, do I focus on the product for the business or like the international students? Yeah.
Yeah. So I really like what you're doing. I think
Thank you.
for the students, it's a little bit more important right now because they're the ones that are going to be renting for you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when you go to Airbnb, there's all the inventory there, and then there's a link, be a host.
Yeah.
Right, and it's 95% focused on the consumption and finding a place to rent, and maybe 5% of that real estate is likely to be, dedicated to getting inventory. There's probably like a landing page for that.
Yeah.
That's 100% optimized for that. And they're doing retargeting of ads and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I also think community building is a great one for you to do too.
Yeah,
If
we're
you're doing
thinking about
students-
co-living.
Co-living is, what's interesting about your business, it seems like it's making a little bit of money and it could wind up being a nice, couple of $1 million a year business in terms of your take. You take 10% or?
We take from both sides of the market actually.
So 5% from both sides? or so?
No, 4% of the entire from the homeowner side. And we only source properties from like short-term rental
So
managers
your total
and
take
developers.
is?
It's a bit funny because we take 8% from the tenant for the first month and we cap
Got
it
it.
at that. So
Great.
to differentiate ourselves.
Okay, perfect. So you make a little bit of money off of this, but
Yeah.
it's not a ton.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing for you to think about is there another business to layer on here that could be a cash cow? And how do you do that? Or you could just keep scaling this. But it does seem to me that the total addressable market for this is something to think about when you go to investors and build a bottom-up total addressable market.
Right.
So how many international students are there? What are the housing needs in the top 10 markets? Not all markets, not some weird statistic you get from PricewaterhouseCoopers that you found on the internet from Ernst & Young or Gartner Group, but just we have these 10 cities. There are these many universities. These universities report they have this percentage of international students. Therefore, we think there's this many opportunities.
Right.
And then there might be an opportunity for you to say, you know what? Here's a way for us to take that, 8% of the first month and make it 8% a month. We're going to rent this group of inventory and place students in co-living
Yeah.
and be able to take 15% a month of their rent or whatever it is. Or we're going to build tools for the management for property renters who have multiple properties. There's when you pull the string, see where it leads you and be very open-minded to expand the ambition of what you're doing. Now, that would be my best piece of advice because I get the sense that this is going to be a grinded out, low margin business. And I'm not sure how much money there is. In New York.
That's interesting how you say that because I thought it will be so at the moment currently our average transaction fee is about $800.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yeah, so I thought that was
that's
actually
higher, yeah.
Yeah,
I
that's
thought it
actually
would be.
pretty high. I thought eventually we could increase it over time because our homeowner side I used to much higher from booking.com.
They pay more.
They pay more for booking.com.
The whole first month's rent or?
Well,
they're only renting for 8 months or 9 months. Is that the?
5 months usually.
5 months. So taking
Yeah.
a month is out of the question.
Yeah.
In New York, the apartments, you have to pay a month or two?
We take
First month, last month?
For a full
broker?
year, yeah.
yeah.
I mean, that's for a permanent rental, though, not a
Not a
short term.
permanent, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to differentiate about because there's a huge gap right now between permanent rental and sort of the Airbnb booking.
Yeah, you're like in this middle space between vacation rental and finding a place to live.
Yeah.
And there's a certain group of people, right, that do this. Students do it, expats do it. Who else have you found? Other than
So
those
a lot
two?
of like specialist surgeons. There's also migrants, like especially now that especially Australia having a lot of migrants. Then there's also like because we do instant booking. So it's really attractive for people who can't get a permanent, who can't get those permanent leases because they have to go through the long procedure. So it's for business people,
You raised
consulting.
money yet for this business?
Sorry?
Did you raise money
No,
yet?
not yet. We went through an accelerator, so we got
Which
some
one?
money. Slingshot.
Slingshot here.
Yeah.
What do they put 50K in for 5%? 25K for 3%?
It depends on the program, but our program was only like $30,000, but with a match, $30,000 with a match funding later on.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
And
That's also one of my challenges too. Like also,
Yeah.
how do I maintain operations and raising at the same time? But
very
we
hard.
have time.
Yeah,
But everybody has
that's-
that problem.
We have that with the Launch Accelerator in America. The explicit purpose of it is so you can run your business 4 days a week.
Yeah.
And 1 day a week, we kind of match you with investors, and maybe we can help you manage that a little bit better
Yeah.
or accelerate that process. What's the market? What is the marketplace doing a month right now overall?
It's about, so I've been operating for 3 months and total we have about $27,000 in revenue. So about
10% of that,
not
2,700.
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's showing potential. I think if you can triple or quadruple that, you would be starting to hit what we look for our accelerator in America.
Yeah.
So if you have that ambition to build a global business with
Yeah,
American
we're definitely
investors,
thinking global.
yeah. So
well,
that's
we're
something when
thinking-
you're in America, come by on a Thursday and meet the team and come to the Launch Accelerator. You can audit it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right.
Great. Thank you.
Great job, Joey. Let's give her a big round of applause.